Good morning, geometry class, and I hope you enjoyed your extra long weekend. But now it's time to get back to business. We just have simply 3.5 weeks of school left. We are getting now to the end, and so I want you to stay focused, work diligently, work hard, and finish strong, okay? And so we're going to pick up where we left off. We're going to open up with the word prayer first, and then we're going to pick up on page number 22. Page 22, the point slope form is where we left off. So we're just going to pray. We'll do a quick review of where we are so far in this pace, and then we'll get started. We'll review page 22, which is what we did on Thursday, and then we'll pick up on page 23, 24, the 2-point equation. So let's pray and ask God's help. Dear Lord, give us wisdom now as we begin. Without you, we can do nothing. Illuminate our minds. Give us wisdom, and we'll give you the glory and the honor in Jesus' name. Amen. All right. So quickly, by way of review, we've learned in this pace what a coordinate plane and how to graph coordinates. And so each coordinate has a pair of numbers. The first number in an ordered pair, we would call that the abscissa, or the x coordinate. And then the second number is called the ordinate, or we would put that as the y coordinate. So remember, the vertical line in a coordinate plane is the y-axis, and the horizontal line going across is the x-axis. So we know that the coordinate plane has 4 quadrants, and so quadrant going counterclockwise, quadrant 1 is positive, positive. Quadrant 2 is negative, positive. Quadrant 3 is negative, negative. And then quadrant 4 is positive, negative. So there you have the coordinate plane. And we learned how to tell the distance between 2 points. And so these formulas must be memorized, so be sure that you're memorizing these formulas. The distance, so if we have the 2 points and we have the same y value, to find the distance between 2 points is simply x squared minus x1. If we have the same x values, or the same abscissas, and then it would be, the distance formula would be y2 minus y1. If we have completely different coordinates, then we use the distance formula here, which is the square root of x squared minus x1 squared plus y2 minus y1 squared. Okay, so again, memorizing these formulas. This formula, although it's a little long, is easy to remember because it's the distance formula for the x coordinate and the y coordinate. So real simple to memorize there. Then we learned how to find a midpoint. So we know a midpoint divides a line into 2 equal segments. And so to find the midpoint, we would simply take both of our x coordinates, add them, divide them by 2. The y coordinates, add them, divide them by 2, and that'll give us the x and y, the midpoint there. We also learned how to find the slope of a line. And so the formula for the slope of a line is m equals y2 minus y1 over x2 minus x1. And again, if the line is sloping down and to the right, it is a negative slope. If the slope is slanting up and to the right, it would be a positive slope, all right? And then we also learned a horizontal line. A horizontal line would be no slope, and a vertical line would be a 0 slope. So there, just to remember those there. And then on Thursday, this last week, we learned what this form is here. This is a graph of a straight line. So we would call this the linear equation. So this is a graph of a straight line, and the standard form is ax plus by equals c. All right, that's the standard form of a equation for a straight line. So we could find, all right, if we have a point and a slope. So if we know the point and a slope, we could take this information and find the the standard form, the equation for which that line can be made. And so we use the point slope formula. This is what we did on Thursday. Y minus y1 equals the slope m times x minus x1. So since that's what we did on Thursday, I'm just going to quickly do 2 problems that were from your homework just by way of review. And then we're going to add another formula to this, which is called the 2-point equation, and we'll do that together, all right? So let's pick up on page number 22. We're going to do quickly 7 and 9. 7 and 9 on page 22. So let's quickly do, I have number 7 here, I have number 9 here, just to do them together by way of review, all right? So we have a point and we have a slope given to us. So we're going to use the point slope equation. So y minus y1, so what's a positive 1 there, we'll just put it in there, all right, equals negative 2/3 times x minus x1, which is simply 1. Now that we have this, first thing you want to do is always eliminate the fraction first. So I'm going to multiply both sides of the equation by my common denominator, which is 3. Okay, so here we have the distributive property, 3 times y is 3y minus 3 equals, they cancel out here, so negative 2, and I'm going to just multiply negative 2 times x, which is negative 2x. Negative 2 times negative 1 is positive 2. Now, once I get down to this step, I want to put it in this form. So that means x and y need to be to the left of the equation, and the positive numbers, negative 3, has to be on the right side. So simply, we're just going to apply our addition and subtraction axioms of equality to get that. So I'm just going to bring, all right, addition axiom, bring the 2, add 2x to both sides. So we have 2x plus 3y equals, again, I'm going to add the, do addition axiom, add 3 to both sides, which is 5. And there you have it. You have your equation, 2x plus 3y equals 5. And it is in standard form. Now, by way of review, very important thing, our first value here, all right, so our first coefficient in ax cannot be negative. If it is negative, then you just simply need to multiply the whole equation by negative 1, which would change all the signs. And second of all, it cannot be a fraction. So remember that coefficient, the a in the standard form here, cannot be negative, and it cannot be a fraction. So keep that in mind. All right, so let's do number 9. So again, y minus y1 is 1 equals 2 over 1 times x minus x1, which is simply 0. Okay. Now, since we have a fraction over 1, right? So I'm just going to go keep everything the same here. Y minus y1 equals 2x, and then obviously 2 times 0 is 0. 2 times 0 is 0. So we have our standard form. Now let's bring the x to the left side of the equation. Let's bring the negative 1 to the right side of the equation, and we'll find our answer. So we have negative 2x plus y equals positive 1. So what do we see wrong with this, class? Can't have a negative sign. So we want to multiply the whole equation by negative 1. And all that does is change all the signs. So 2x minus y equals negative 1. And so that's just a reminder of how to do your point slope. So we have a point and a slope. With that information, we can find the graph of the equation ax plus by equals c. Now let's turn to page. Let's go to page number 23. And we're going to have what is called the 2-point equation. The 2-point equation, all right? So how do we find the equation of a line when all we know are the coordinates of 2 points on that line? The point slope form states that y minus y1 equals m times x minus x1. We define the slope of a line, right? Remember, what's the formula for the slope of a line? So the slope of a line is y2 minus y1 over x2 minus x1. Okay, so by making this substitution for m in the point slope form, we obtain the 2-point equation. Now you want to highlight the 2-point equation. So it's the same thing here. It's the same thing. The only difference is we don't have the slope. So we have to find out what the slope is. So solving for the slope. So all I'm doing is I'm putting my slope formula into where m is. That's the only change in this equation. So I'm going to write that up here. So we're going to put, all right, 2-point equation. So y minus y1 equals, now again, I'm going to substitute in my slope formula. So y2 minus y1 over x2 minus x1 times x minus x1. Now, just so we don't get confused, we can find the graph of this line, the equation, all right, for the graph of this line, if we just have the point and a slope, or if we just simply have 2 sets of points. And so all we're going to do is just plug in the known values and solve for the standard form equation of ax plus by equals c. Okay, so let's do a couple of these together. Okay, we're going to do the odds. So we'll do 1, 3, 5. Okay, 1, 3, and 5 together. So let's look at the first one. We have 0.1, which is 0, 1. And we have 0.2, which is 2, 5. Now, from that information, we're going to be able to solve, okay? We'll be able to solve. So let's look at this together. Okay. Y minus Y1. So Y minus Y1. So now we're here. Let's just simply here so we don't forget. Okay. X1, Y1, X2, Y2. Okay. So again, we're going to plug it into our equation. So Y minus Y1. So Y minus 0. Okay. Equals Y2 minus Y1, so 5 minus 1, over X2 minus X1, so X2 is our second number here, so 2 minus 0, times X minus X1, which is 0. All I've done is just substitute in our known values. Now we're going to solve. Okay, this is a simple one here. Obviously, Y minus, all right, this should be Y minus Y1. I have 0 there. That should be 1. Okay. All right. Now let's solve for the slope. Okay. 5 minus 1 is 4. 2 minus 0 is 2. So we have a slope of 4 over 2. Now we can make that simple and just reduce it, right? So 4 over 2, if we reduce that, is simply 2 over 1, or just simply 2. And then times x minus 0. All right, now let's simplify. Y minus 1 equals 2x. And then 2x times 0 is 0, so we'll just leave that there. All right, now we want to get this equation into standard form. So we got to get x on the left. We got to get -1 on the right. And again, we simply apply our addition and subtraction axioms of equality. So we have -2x plus y equals +1. Can't have -2. So -2, we got to multiply the whole equation by -1. All that does is simply change your signs, and your answer for number 1 should simply be 2x minus y equals 1. 2x minus y equals -1. Sorry, -1 there. Okay, so let's do the next one. Number 3. Okay. So, okay, we have 0, -5, and we have 2, 0. Again, if you just want to simply label these so you don't get confused. All right, we have x1, y1, x2, y2. All right, now we're just going to plug it in. So what is this equation, knowing these two sets of points? Let's do the equation here. Y minus y1. So pay attention to your negative sign. So y minus -5 equals, okay, now let's find the slope, which is y2 minus y1. So 0 minus -5 over x2 minus x1, which is 2 minus 0, times x minus x1, which is x minus 0. All right, now that you simply plug in your numbers, let's do our math, okay? Let's begin to simplify. So two negative signs give us a positive. So y plus 5 equals, again, all right, we have a negative times a negative, which is a positive. So 5 over 2 times x minus 0. Now, if we have a fraction, what's the first thing we want to do? So from the previous page, right? We want to eliminate the fraction. So we eliminate the fraction by multiplying both sides of the equation by the denominator, so which is 2. So we're going to multiply both sides by 2. So we have 2y plus 10 equals, all right, those 2's cancel out. And then 5 times x is 5x. and then 5 times 0 is 0, so we don't have to put anything there. Now, once we get it to this step, we want to begin to put it in standard form. Standard form. So again, getting the x to the left, getting the whole number to the right. And so we do that again by applying our subtraction and addition axioms of equality. So we have negative 5x plus 2y equals negative 10. All right, so how do we get that? I simply subtracted 5 from both sides. That's how I got negative 5. And I simply subtracted 10 from both sides. That's how I got negative 10. So there's your addition and subtraction axioms of equality. All right, now we cannot have a negative coefficient, right? A coefficient of x. So we simply multiply the whole equation by negative 1. And you should have 5x minus 2y equals positive 10. 5x minus 2y equals positive 10. All right, so let's do one more together. You see how straightforward this is? Real basic, real simple. And we're applying all of what we've learned so far. So we're applying the slope formula, something we've learned in the second section there in our pace, and just putting it all together and finding, again, the linear equation, standard form by the two-point equation. All right, so let's do number 5. We'll do number 5 and then we'll move on. Number 5. So number 5 is 4, negative 5, and 11, 2. I'm going to take these, again, if you want to, mark these, x1, y1, x2, y2, okay? All right, let's plug them in. Y minus, y1 is negative 5, so make sure you put your negative 5 in there, equals, now let's put our slope formula in, y2 minus y1, so 2 minus negative 5 over, all right, x2 minus x1, so 11 minus 4 times x minus x1, which is x minus 4. Now let's take our time and begin to work through the problem and begin to solve. So again, negative times a negative is a positive, so y plus 5 equals, all right, we have another plus 5 here. Okay, so 2 plus 5 is 7 over, what's 11 minus 4? 7. Okay. So if I have a numerator 7 and a denominator 7, if I reduce that, what would that be? Simply 1. So I'm going to reduce that and just real easily make that 1. Okay? Now, y plus 5 equals, now let's use the distributive property here, distribute this out. So 1 times x is x, 1 times negative 4 is negative 4. From there, we're going to get our x to the left, our plus 5 to the right. This way we could put it in the standard form, right? X plus y equals c. So again, I'm going to apply the addition and subtraction axioms of equality. So simply we have negative x plus y equals negative 4 minus 5. So negative x plus y equals negative 9. And then can't have a negative coefficient of x, so we want to multiply everything by negative 1. And our final answer will be x minus y equals positive 9. From there, any two numbers that we put in here that will satisfy this equation, right, will be graphed on that straight line. Remember, this is a graph. It's called a linear equation. It's a graph of a straight line, So again, I want you to do the evens on this page, 2, 4, 6, and 8 for practice. Immediately when you're finished this page, you need to take your checkup. And so begin taking your checkup. You need to take that. Take about 15 minutes to do that. And then we're going to do 2 pages, 27 and 28. All right, so 27 and 28, we will do that now. So if you want to take a break, shut this off, hit pause, take the checkup, and then come back and do pages 27 and 28. So we're going to work on them right now. Okay, the slope-intercept form. The slope-intercept form is where we're going to pick up Now, slope-intercept, okay? Now, on page, excuse me, on page 19, we learned how to use a table to graph an equation. Remember we did that? We had a table that would look like this, x and y, right? And we used that table to graph an equation, and then we graphed those points. But there's a simpler way, so you don't have to always use the table. There's an easier way to do that. So this method the table method will take a lot of time. Using the slope-intercept form of the equation will take less time. With this method, we will use the slope and y-intercept to plot a line on a coordinate plane. The y-intercept is the y-coordinate of the point where the graph of a line crosses the y-axis. So if you're looking at your notes there, okay, you'll see the graph here. And so right where this line crosses the y-axis, we call that the y-intercept, all right? And so we call that the y-intercept. And so that, now notice where that line crosses. So if we were to graph that point, what point would that be? 0, right? 0, 7. Right where that line crosses, the coordinates are 0, 7. Now, how do we graph a line? Using the slope and the y-intercept? What is the graph of a line if the slope is -1, 2? Now, remember where we talked about this when we learned the slope. So -1, 2. So remember, the numerator always tells us to go up or down. So if it's -1, we go, all right, so we're going to start at 0, 7, and we go down 1 spot. And since the denominator is a positive number 2, we go over to the right 2 spots. So down 1, over 2. Down 1, over 2. So you continue to follow that line there, okay? So we have, since the y-intercept is 7, the line will cross the y-axis at 0, 7. The slope is -1, 2. Since the slope is negative, starting at 0, 7, remember, when we talk about a negative slope, it goes down and to the right. So now you should find the coordinates. Now let's look right where we go on that line, all right? So let's go down here. Let's go down 1, over 2, and make a dot. What are the coordinates there? So it would be 2, right, on the x-coordinate. So we're going to go 2 over, and then 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6 up. So the coordinates 2, 6 are right on the line. Let's go down again. Down 1, over 2, all right? And so we have 4 and what? 5, right? So we see there 4 and 5, and so on and so on. And after plotting those points, you could use a ruler, and you can use that and connect those points and form a straight line. All right, so you need to memorize this formula. So I'm going to add another formula on here to our list of formulas, and this is called the slope intercept. Okay, slope intercept, and it's simply, now this is, look at this form here, y equals mx plus b. mx plus b. So if we're looking for, okay, the y-intercept here, this is the standard form for the slope and y-intercept, all right? Now, the slope-intercept form is expressed in this equation, y equals mx plus b. It can be found by solving for y. It can be found for solving for y. So, for example, if I have an equation that looks like this, okay, before I can find the slope-intercept, I must have it in this form. So I must arrange this equation to look like this. So that means I got to get y on the left side, and then I got to get 2x on the right side. It's got to look like this. Okay, once it looks like this, we're okay. Now let's quickly read on here. All right. The slope m and y-intercept of a line can be read directly from this equation and used to graph the equation. All right. So again, all I need is one set of points, and once I have the slope, I can count it. All right, and we can count using the slope there. So let's look at page 28, and let's do a couple of these for practice. All right, I have number 1 up on the board here. 2x plus y, or excuse me, 2x equals y plus 13. So let's manipulate this equation to put it in this slope-intercept form, right? So negative y equals, all right, again, addition, subtraction, axiom of equality here. All right, so we subtracted 2x from both sides, equals negative 2x plus 13. Now, for the same thing that we do for the linear equation, we want to do the same thing for this slope-intercept form. That means I can't have a negative y. All right, so we got to change that by simply multiplying everything by negative 1. And now we have y equals 2x minus 13. 2x minus 13. Once we get it to that form, okay, let's come back to the standard form here, right? Does it look like that? Y equals mx plus b. Y equals 2x minus 13. Standard form. Now, the letter m always represents what, class? The slope. Okay, so here's our slope. Look, 2x. In the equation, it's mx, right? So here it's 2x. So our slope would be 2 over 1. So our slope is 2 over 1, which means what? From our y-intercept, we're going to go 2 spots up, 1 spot to the right. 2 spots up, 1 spot to the right. Now, what's the y-intercept? The y-intercept, here it is. It's the letter b in our equation. So what does that mean? All right, so if I'm graphing these numbers, here's what it's going to look like. 0, negative 13. That's where our y-intercept is. So from that point, if we were to graph this on a coordinate plane, all right, if we were to graph this on a coordinate plane, we would begin at 0, 13, at negative 13. And from there, we would go 2 spots up, 1 spot to the right. 2 spots up, 1 spot to the right. If we continue to do that, we'll graph those points, we'll get our straight edge or our ruler, and we'll draw a straight line. It's the same thing that we were doing on page 19, but on page 19 we were using a table, and some of you remember how hard it was trying to figure out the numbers to plug into an equation. But this slope-intercept form is simple, it's quick, and it's accurate. So let's go look at number 3, and then we'll graph and we'll finish here. All right, let's do number 3 together. We have 4x equals 2 minus 3y. Now, is that in the standard form for our slope-intercept? Okay, not for our linear equation, but for our slope-intercept. No. So that means we want to get 3y to the left, and we want to get 4x to the right. So let's quickly do that. Again, addition, axiom of equality. So we have positive 3y equals, and then I'm going to do the subtraction axiom of equality, which would be negative 4x plus 2. All right, now from here, I can't have a number in front of the y. So it can't be negative, and I don't want to have a number here. So how do I eliminate this number? I divide by 3. And if I divide this side of the equation by 3, I have to divide the other 2 sides. So I'm going to divide everything by 3. So y equals negative 4/3 x plus 2/3. All right. Now from this I can graph. I have enough information to graph my straight line. So what's my slope? Negative 4 over 3. That's my slope. Very good. So m equals negative 4 over 3. And what's my y-intercept? The last number. So 0 and 2/3. So from 0 to 2/3, if again, we would go 4 spots down, 3 spots to the right. And if we continue to do that, we would graph a straight line. Let's do number 5. Let's graph this and we'll get ready to complete our class for the day. Let me draw my coordinate plane. Okay, here's our origin, our x and y axis. And so we have for number 5, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. Okay, let's see how that works out for us. Okay, we have 5x plus 9 equals 3y. Okay, now this is the standard form. So what do we have to do to get this in standard form? So 3y has to come to the left, and both 5x and 9 have to go to the right. Okay, so again, subtraction axiom, addition axiom. So we have negative 3y equals negative 5x minus 9. From there, let's get rid of everything. Let's get rid of the y here, the coefficient of y, so negative 3. Divide everything by negative 3. All right, so our new equation is going to be y equals, okay, now take your time here. Negative and a negative gives me a positive. So our slope would be positive 5x. And then what is negative 3 divided, or negative 9 divided by negative 3? Positive 3. Okay. Here's how we graph this now. What's our slope? Our slope is, I'm just going to write it up here. Our slope is positive 5 over 3. And our y-intercept would be 0, 3. 0, 3. Now, from there, we're going to go on our graph, and we're going to find 0, 3 on our graph and graph that. So our chord of plane. So 0, 3 would be 1, 2, 3 right there. From that point, we are going to go 5 spots up and 3 spots to the right. So 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 1, 2, 3. Okay, and then from here, again, my graph doesn't go that far, but if I were to go 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 1, 2, 3, and what we do is you get your straight edge, and there's your straight line. Straight through. So all we need is the y-intercept, and all we need is our slope, and from there we can graph a straight line. That's all we've been doing, right? Is linear equations, straight line equations. There are 2 ways to do that. There are the standard linear equation, okay, and then plugging in numbers that would satisfy that equation. All those points, all those coordinates would be on the straight line, or we can use the slope-intercept equation. So again, make sure your checkups are in by 3 o'clock. We want to make sure they're in so we can get those scored for you, guys and girls. Again, if you have any questions, be sure to reach out. All right, so have a blessed day. Lord willing, we'll see you tomorrow.